Last night's declaration of Mar-Sheol-Law, the soldiers are moving in to secure key areas in all major
In response to UN presence in Minneapolis.
Last night I dreamt about how things were.
Of every enemy of the state!
And then I woke up here.
And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? Revelation chapter 13, verse 3 and 4. Shabbat Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to our venerable apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. It's a brother Haran coming back at you with another lesson, Lord willing to be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. All right. And want to go into a quick lesson here. All right. Going into the coming events. All right. Highlighting Jacob's trouble. And from time to time, we go into certain things that have been signed into place. All right. For specific events. Once they take place, they become effective. All right. These specific things we're talking about will be known as executive orders. All right. Now, I remember a couple of years ago, well, actually more than a few years ago, went into a lesson going into the FEMA executive orders. Okay. And how they're going to play a role once a national emergency is declared here on American soil, otherwise known as Mar-Sheol-Law. Okay. And I have a little reading that I want to share. Okay. Going into, basically solidifying the fact that Mar-Sheol-Law, in fact, will be declared upon the soils of America, and they're preparing for that. Okay. And I believe through the Spirit that we're not going to see Mar-Sheol-Law until these so-called AI data centers, and I speak as a man, all right, a spiritual man, that is. All right. That these AI centers, these data centers, once they're set up, all right, we might see one or two go up, and once they go up, we're going to see a shift, all right, in tone and in change of, tone and in ways of doing things. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, let me just jump into this real quick. All right. Let's see where I'm going to start off at. Actually, you know what? Let's start off at the top. All right. But before I do so, let's get this quick precept here. All right, the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11, it says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, and this devil that had devices spanning over 100 years, okay, pretty much since the inception of America, all right, going all the way back to so-called 1776, they've had, all right, devices, okay, which are pretty much schemes, ultimately known as agendas, okay. The New World Order is an agenda, all right. The so-called Great Reset, which is another name of saying New World Order, is an agenda, all right. Depopulation is an agenda. All these different things, the most sexualization of men, all right, the effeminization of men, the masculinization of women is all part of the agendas, okay. Making adults act like children and children act like adults, that's all part of the agenda, all right. And ultimately, all that's done, all right, all that's doing is for the collapse of the central nervous system, which is known as the nuclear home or / nuclear family, where you have the man, woman, and child, or children, in this case, or man, women, and children, right? But Esau has done away with all that. All right, so now you have a division. You have men fighting against women. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. All right, and it's all part of the whole divide and conquer tactic. Okay, but like I said, once these AI centers are set up, Esau is going to make his move, because now he's able to control, all right, through artificial intelligence, everything that he has, all right, under his control. Okay, he can actually, facilitate, whatever it is that he wants to facilitate. Okay, so let's read. It says, the Congress was quick to grant the president sweeping power in his war against terrorists. Okay, TR, who, all right, around the world via their overwhelming adoption of the Patriot Act. Okay, going all the way back to 2001. Okay, September 11, 2001. That's where the Patriot Act came. Now, in a small understanding of the Patriot Act, it basically gives the president, all right, the ability to wage war against anyone that's deemed a terrorist. So that's why they have to designate, all right, a group like Antifa. Remember that was last month or 2 months ago? They designated Antifa as a terrorist group, a domestic terrorist group, and nothing came out of it. It's like they just said it, and people talked about it for a little bit. It died down, and it went away. But they do these things for things later down the line. All right, they set the stage months in advance, sometimes years in advance, before they actually get there. That's why the Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians 2 that we are not ignorant of his devices, because we pay attention to all that shit. Okay, from 1776 till now, we pay attention to all of that shit. All right, do you know the amount of books we read and research we do to keep up with how these devils like to manipulate people's minds? Right? It says, if the provisions contained within the act are applied only against aliens suspected of T activity in this country, then there might be some justification for some of the incomprehensible authority now permitted law enforcement. The act can and will most likely be used by all agencies of government to invade all citizens' constitutional protections, not just foreign terrorists. Okay, so now you got domestic terrorists. You got the DHS, you got the DOD, okay, you got what else? The FBI, the CIA, okay, you name it. All these agencies, all right, the IRS, all right, yeah, you might think, oh, they just deal with just taxes. No. They're stocked and loaded, all right? They're loaded, ready to go. Even the Postmaster General is ready to go, okay? You'd be shocked. All right, and when I say loaded and ready to go, I'm talking about, you know what, all right? It says anyone who dares to exercise the First Amendment the First Amendment right of free speech in speaking out against government policy can be denigrated by the government and labeled a theist, whether foreign or domestic. In this case, they're focused more on domestic, and there's a reason for that, okay? It says if you seek privacy protection in the form of a trust, you can be labeled a theist hiding his money. Any attempt to question the fairness of a tax can get you labeled a theist. That is the way it has always worked in fascist societies. Ours, which is America or Babylon the Great, is no exception. The Constitution for the United States has been a dead letter ever since the 1933 passage of the War Powers Act. But the federal beast has permitted its use by defendants in courts when it suited their purpose. It is otherwise optional to them. All right, so when you say, oh, I have my constitutional rights, well, if you really understood what the Constitution is and how it actually works in what is known as maritime admiralty law, you understand that you really don't have any type of rights. All right, you're governed by maritime admiralty, so you have straw man, all kinds of different shit. Okay, America does not rule based on common law, okay, which is the law of the land, otherwise known as biblical law. Okay, because common law goes back to the old English societies that pretty much came up with laws, basic laws, like don't murder somebody, don't steal. These are tenets that comes from the scriptures. Okay, so eventually Esau said, nah, we can't achieve our New World Order if we're gonna be going based on biblical laws, because the Bible pretty much disannuls their plans. All right, if you have an agenda to say we're gonna depopulate the earth, meanwhile the Lord says, be fruitful and multiply, somebody could have an argument against that. And this is not just an argument; it's more of a faith. It's a belief, and you ain't gonna tell no man, oh, you can't make no more babies just because I'm trying to build a new world order. Man, fuck you. All right, that's the answer you're gonna get. All right, in the old school way, it's gonna be guns blazing at that point. Government telling me how to live my life. See, nowadays you got these people that wait for the government to tell them what to do. So we're in a completely different world right now. All right. It says now, however, even the pretense of constitutional protection is lost under the Patriot Act. Okay, because understanding that they can just say, oh, we're just doing this to keep our homeland safe. That way we could just invade you. We don't need the Fourth Amendment, which is basically they have to get a warrant before they can search you or seize anything of your personal property, including you, the person. Okay, but with the Patriot Act, they can just say, oh, and there's something called it's called Pfizer, Pfizer documents or something like that, which basically allows the CIA and the NSA to spy on foreign people, just in case, somebody's plotting something, some schemes. But that's just the cover. They just created all that so they could spy on the American people, on American soil. Okay, now to a degree, due to the Fourth Amendment, that is illegal. They can't do that. But they can do that if they create devices like smart devices, where, they didn't have to come and put it in your house per se, right? You went and purchased it and brought it into your house. So in other words, you're agreeing to have this type of digital surveillance technology in your house disguised as a smartphone. We all have it. Okay. Anyway, continue. It says, telephones can now be monitored. See, cell phones, right? Homes can be searched and property seized, all without a warrant or without judiciary inquiry. The definitions of theist, right? Because they got to keep the homeland safe. And if you're a terrorist, then you don't have no rights, pretty much, right? Shit is getting crazy, man. It's about to get even crazier. All right, it says the definition of theist are left up to the attorney general and the president or the corner cop on the belt. Oh, that's like on the beat. Okay, so only the attorney general, all right, which I believe is it's crazy. It's Pam Bondi, right? What kind of credentials she has, only God knows. Okay, and then Trump, a nigga who was on TV as a so-called celebrity, all right, and now he's become the president of the so-called greatest country on earth. Ain't that some shit? All these people are not qualified. Pete Hegseth, all these niggas, all these clowns, they're all not qualified. It's like a clown show. Okay, you got all these non-qualified people who are not really having the best, the interests of the American people at heart. They're all pledging towards the Jays, all of them, every single one of them. All right, and it doesn't make the case even better when you have on the side of Trump, you have the Secretary of Commerce, and he's a direct J. What's his name? Howard Lutnick. He's a J, man. Okay, and he's a Director of Commerce or Secretary of Commerce, man. Okay. Yeah, this place is done, man. They done sold this country out a long time ago. All right, it says when, not if. It says when, not if there is another catastrophic event and they've been kind of hinting at those things. You got the Afghan shooting, right? The guy who so-called, it's again made up stories, so that's why it never sticks. It's just boom, it happens, everybody talks about it, and it dies away. There's no further investigation. There's no follow-up. People don't really follow it to say, hey, what's going on with all this? The guy you claim to be an Afghan, immigrant, he's been in the country since 2021 via the Biden, open border policy, whatever bullshit, right? Once again, problem, reaction, solution. And he came in here, and without any clear motive, he just went and just shot up 2 National Guard troops. Oh, and then what happened after that? He got arrested. He got shot down. What happened there, right? What's going on, right? So this is all, again, it's all fabricated. It's called agitation, propaganda. Okay, problem, reaction, solution. And then you have another one. I believe they're sending some National Guard troops out to Minneapolis. All right, because they say something about some Somali TS groups and so on and so forth, right? So they setting the stage. They are setting the stage, okay? And it's all going to be pretty much like, oh, because of these events, we now have to make sure that we have a buffed up security system, meaning we all have to, we got to check everyone. We don't know who's who, right? These people are coming in here. And the thing is, for me, my question is, this Afghan dude, right? Whatever his name was, Ramdullah, whatever. What is his motive, right? What is his motive? You just randomly just get up from a different country, mind you. And your job is to just come in here and just shoot 2 National Guard troops? Like, that shit don't make no sense, right? It doesn't even make sense. But again, it's all to stir up controversy, all right? The news media right now is all there to just to promote and push propaganda, and that's it, okay? None of the shit that they say is true. I could dead ass just say none of the shit that you see on TV is true. It's all fabricated. It's all acting. It's all framing, all right? Priming, all kinds of shit, man, okay? It's called public opinion for a reason. They need to make sure that they have control over the minds of the people through the media, through the government, and so on and so forth. And how do those two things work? The government creates the scenarios, right, known as false flags, and then the media pushes it like it's real, so they can create that hysteria. So then people are so frightened, whatever the government says they're going to do. It's just that simple, all right? So majority of these the things that you be seeing on TV and all that, it's all made up shit. Okay, they actually rehearse these things before it goes live on TV. It's called active live simulations, all right? Active drills, if you will. So it says here, and until the American people catch on to this shit, keep calling it conspiracy theory, whatever you want, they're going to use these same tactics until they get to the point where they're knocking on your doors, military's knocking on your doors, and you getting gun butted, man, at the back of your head at 3 a.m. on a cold winter night, man. That's what you're going to be getting, you dumbass Americans, bro. Anyway, it says, when, not if, there is another catastrophic event, be it terrorist-related, economic, or manufactured by the government. See? So the government does manufacture catastrophic events. Okay? This is what the president is going to do. Right? Let's get the right page. It says the president will impose a national emergency, and martial law will be imposed on all American citizens. All of the executive orders beginning with Jimmy Carter will be put into motion. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, will be in fact the rulers of this country, and we will all obey their every command, or we will be either imprisoned or executed. Right? Because you're in a time of martial law, you don't get to use the normal, civilian court of law, if you will. All right. Now you're under something known as military tribunal. Okay. Or military tribunal. Let me see if I can pull that up. We can read a little bit about that just for edification. Let me see. Just pull it up here. All right. What is a military tribunal? Boom. It says a military tribunal is a military court established to try members of enemy forces, and the American people are the enemies, right? Which is, I believe, the Trading with the Enemies Act. I forget exactly what year that was passed. Okay, but that basically made America. It might have been 1933. I'm not sure. Right, but it basically deems the American people the enemy of the state. Okay, so it says to try members of enemy forces during wartime operating under a distinct set of rules and procedures from civilian courts. See, so it's different from civilian courts, right? They are used to try individuals for offenses such as violations of laws of war, right? In the time of martial law, martial meaning warlike, and law, okay? Martial law, war law, okay? And are separate from the system of courts martial used to try service members for crimes under martial law. Okay, jurisdiction. These are the key characteristics of military tribunals. Jurisdiction, it says they are primarily intended to try members of enemy forces, especially during wartime. Right? You got the Secretary of War, PHETSEC, right? PHETSEC. It says rules of procedure. They operate outside of conventional criminal and civil proceedings, and often use different rules of evidence, which may be less stringent than those in civilian courts, right? In other words, your constitutional rights are null and void. Okay, you're dealing in a wartime law at that time. Okay, it says judges and jurors. Judges are typically military officers, and in some structures, they also fulfill the role of the jury. All right, and if you have a corrupt system like what Trump and them are trying to set up, okay, sending the military far into different countries, creating all this reasons for war to send them out there. So when they start attacking the homeland from within, the military is not going to be here to help the American people. Okay, they're not even going to use the military. That's why they're going to use the UN troops. Okay, it's going to make more sense. All right, it says purpose. It says they are convened to address issues related to wartime crimes or to process detainees in the context of a conflict, which is war. All right, another way of saying war is conflict, or the politically correct way of saying war is conflict, right? Such as the war on terror. Ooh. Okay. Distinct from courts martial, it is important to distinguish a military tribunal from a court martial, which is a system used to trying members of the armed forces for offenses under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Okay, so that's a little bit on the military tribunal, which is a military court established to try members of enemy forces, which would be the American civilians, during wartime. Okay, in the time of a national emergency being declared or martial law being declared, that's deemed a wartime. Okay, and at that point, you're not dealing with the regular civilian courts; you're dealing with the military tribunal. Okay, so continue going back into the reading. It says, all of the executive orders beginning with Jimmy Carter will be put into motion. The Federal Emergency Management Agency will be, in fact, the rulers of this country, and the people will all obey in their every command. And if they don't, they're either going to be imprisoned or executed, period. The newly formed Agency of Homeland Security will assume the role of the Gestapo of World War II in Germany and will undoubtedly employ many of the same tactics. Now, let's look up Gestapo, right? Who were the Gestapo in Germany? It says here the Gestapo was the official secret police. You got ICE, right? Of Nazi Germany, formed in 1933. Very interesting. And dissolved in 1945. Its purpose was to suppress opposition through terror, arrest, and murder, and its jurisdiction extended across Germany and occupied Europe. Okay? Headed by figures like Heinrich Himmler, Heinrich Müller, and Rudolf Diels. The Gestapo was responsible for enforcing Nazi rule and played a central role in the Holocaust. Okay? So there you have it. What is the Gestapo? Official secret police of the Nazi, all right, or Nazi Germany, all right, which its purpose was to what? To suppress opposition, okay, through what? Through terror, arrest, and murder. Okay, in Germany, or at least their jurisdiction in Germany. So when you hear Gestapo, that's what they mean. All right, it's a secret police, or in this case, just like ICE. ICE is going to end up becoming the Gestapo of Trump's authoritarian regime. Okay, and that's why you see them moving the way they're moving now. Okay, so it says, with our military off fighting in all corners of the world, which is what they're doing now, right? Venezuela, Colombia, Somalia, Nigeria, right? Ukraine, Taiwan. All right. It says they won't be able to help us if the president declares martial law and enforces it with UN troops and Homeland Security personnel. Those soldiers from mostly Eastern European countries hate the United States, right? And the way of life, and would not hesitate to put a bullet between the eyes of anyone who does not follow their orders to the letter. Okay? Scripture says, they shall be like madmen, sparing none. Okay? These people that are coming in, that are going to be used as so-called law enforcement, all right? These people are people from different countries, foreign countries, who have no connections, no ties to Americans. They're not like your next door neighbor who you grew up with, and now he chose to become a damn military guy, and you a doctor or some shit. You know what I mean? You got a 9-to-5 job that you do. In your mind, you're saving lives and healing people and shit. And this dude thinks he's keeping his country safe and free. See? So he knows he plays a role. He's a military guy. That's just a role he plays. You a doctor. That's a role you play. But the people who are controlling the system in which you're working in, they pit you guys against each other. Okay? So your roles are just, you're defined by your roles. You're not really defined by who you are as a person. Oh, he's a doctor. That's it. Because there's a certain stigma that comes with being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. So once you say something, oh, I'm a military. Oh, you was fighting wars and doing all this extra shit, saving our lives. Oh, thank you for the freedoms that you fight for us all day. Meanwhile, the military niggas come back and they all pissed off because they realize that they've been used by these major corporations that sided with the governments, okay, to push their foreign policy, if you will. Okay. So continuing, it says, and by the way, corporations have policy. All right, corporations have policy. So it says here, those soldiers from mostly Eastern European countries hate the United States. Okay, Eastern European. All right, and our way of life, and would not hesitate to put a bullet between the eyes of anyone who does not follow their orders to the letter. Upon review of some of the executive orders already in place, control of food and food processing and its distribution is one that stands out the most as the most perplexing. Okay, it is a well-known maxim of warfare that if you can deny your enemy food, the battle is won. A hungry soldier or a hungry patriot will do whatever his captor demands if he is promised food. It is amusing that there is a federal law prohibiting the hoarding of food. It is a felony. I wonder why Congress ever thought a law of that type was needed in a land of bounty where all are free. I will let you ponder that question also. It says here, there's a list of a few executive orders already issued, which as public policy have the force and effect of law, so that you can, it goes into something else, right? So these are the executive orders. And I remember going through these, right? Executive Order 10995, it provides for the takeover of the communication media. Okay? Communication media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all these different platforms are going to be taken over, all right, eventually by FEMA and the military once national emergency is declared, but ultimately martial law is declared. Okay. Executive Order 10997 provides for the takeover of all electrical power, petroleum, gas, fuels, and minerals. Okay. These executive orders will make sense eventually because, like I said, these data centers are being set up so they can actually enforce these things that they're going to be taking over. right? Communication media, they're going to use AI to run that. Electrical power, petroleum, gas, fuels, minerals, they want AI to control all those things. Those are the natural resources that's going to be tokenized, right? It says, hold on, make sure this thing is not good. All right. It says Executive Order 10998 provides for the takeover of all food resources and farms. Executive Order 10999 provides for the takeover of all modes of transportation. Okay? Control of highways and seaports. That's your borders for you. Okay, that's your border patrol right there for you. It says Executive Order 11000 provides for mobilization of all civilian interwork brigades under government supervision. Okay? Executive Order 11001 provides for the takeover. Check this out. This is where RFK and them come in, right? Dr. Oz and all them demons. It says it provides for the takeover of all health, education, and welfare functions. So your Section 8s, your SNAP benefits, okay? All these different things are going to be taken over. All right, it's a takeover. Executive Order 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. Ooh, can we see the MOTB come out with that executive order? Executive Order 11002. It designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the number of the name, or the number of his number of the beast, or the number of his name. All right. It says here, Executive Order 11003 provides for the takeover of all airports and aircraft. The FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. All right, I've already showed you that they will be the ones to be taking over your forms of transportation. Straight up. Okay, straight up. And it's all being digitized. Eventually, they want AI to run all of this shit. So all these executive orders are going to be consolidation of power. All right, pretty much like the last land grab, if you will. Executive Order 11004 provides for the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate entire communities. What are they talking about? Jakes. Whenever you see that word communities, they're really talking about you Jakes. Okay, because Edomites don't really move like that with that whole community shit. It's all Jakes. Like project niggas and all that. Nah. Edomites got homes. They got houses, right? And they spread out. And their houses are big and they got space and there's nice. Jake, you live on top of each other in the projects. You know, you go outside, you see the same faces every day. You ain't got no space to even stretch out a little bit. You know, you walk in the building, main door is broken, elevator don't work. You know, it smells like piss and weed and cigarettes all over the fucking place, right? It's very unkept. You know, you walk in and you got graffiti all over. It's just I'm giving you a picture of a typical Jake neighborhood. A typical Jake neighborhood with a project building. You walk in there, that's what you're gonna see. All right, crackhead shit going on all over the place, man. Okay, but those are the communities, the entire communities that's gonna be relocated. You know what that means, right? Relocation. That means FEMA camps. Okay. It says designate areas to be abandoned and establish new locations for populations. That's FEMA camps for you. They're gonna be hauling your ass straight to FEMA camps. It says Executive Order 11005 provides for government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. You hear that? Now, why? Why? Richard Nixon, in Executive Order 11490, combined all of these listed orders into one neat little package. In that order, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, would be responsible for carrying out all of these orders against the American people. Okay? President Reagan signed Executive Order 12656, further eroding the rights of Americans under guise of a national emergency. Okay? Reagan's order defined such an emergency as any occurrence including natural disaster, military attack, right? So the military attack, it could be an inside job, right? What was it? An emergency as any occurrence including natural disaster, military attack, technological emergency, or other emergency that seriously degrades or seriously threatens the national security of the United States. Well, you wait till AI breaches and starts doing their own shit, because you want to put AI into governance and pretty much AI into everything. But eventually, even the people that created AI, they all come out and say the same thing, like, "Yo, this is not something you want to play with. We've already gotten way too far. You know what I'm saying? We're just kind of like regressing at this point, so you might want to stop." Okay, but they're not trying to hear that. They're not trying to hear that. So it says here, let's see, where did we stop at? All right, so technological emergency, right? Like I was saying, they're shifting everything to AI, but eventually it's going to turn on them. It's going to go rogue. Okay, it's going to go rogue, man. All right, because the Lord's going to put a spirit on AI to start actually, he's going to actually be able to control the vessels. All right, to work his purpose, which is to bring judgment and destruction upon the 2/3 and the wicked of these people, man. All right, those who are not of the elect. Okay, it says, or seriously threatens the national security of the United States. It says President Clinton signed Executive Order 12919. Very interesting. On June 3rd, 1994, streamlining the organizational control by his cabinet members and redefining FEMA's role in such a takeover. The executive order, as I received it, does not contain the entire order. The substantive portions of the act have been omitted from the public view. And let's see. It says, now we have President Bush with a different agenda or another path to the same objective as his father. There you go. That's perfectly said. Just another path to the same objective. All right. One world government. This time, the excuse given for the nefarious legislation known as the Patriot Act is that the TIS must be stopped at all costs. That's exactly what Trump is doing. You know, even the cost of our liberty. Okay. Why does the rest of the world believe that America is wrong in its foreign policy? Is it possible they are right and the reason for the terrorists is that misguided foreign policy? Right? And that's the end of it right there. I'm gonna end it off there. Okay, but basically, we just a quick summary here. All right, we went into how the president got sweeping powers. Okay, due to the War Powers Act, all right, that was passed, all right, 1933. Okay, Congress pretty much gave the president power, all right, to go against theists at all cost. Okay, whether they be foreign or domestic. See, so now they just have to label somebody a theist, and they're justified in actually using all these tactics against them. Okay. So we got to be on the lookout and pay attention to listen to what these devils are saying, because they're always telling themselves. All right, as a matter of fact, let's get that real quick. The Lord always puts the spirit on them to tell on themselves. Okay. It's the book of Psalm chapter 64 and verse 8. It says, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. Okay. So you paying attention. These devils are telling you what they're going to do. All right, and it lines up perfectly with scriptures, then you might want to be prepared. Okay, you might want to be prepared. All right, and when I say you might want to be prepared, I'm not talking about, the faithful house of David. I'm talking about people who may just be hearing this and they just hear to scoff and listen for entertainment. Now's not the time for that. All right, you might want to really, really start to reevaluate the situation that we're in and understand that we're in dire straits. And for those who lack the ability, the intuition or the insight to see these things before they happen, or the foresight, I should say, before they happen, you're doomed. All right, you're effed. Okay, because here it is, the devil is about to come down upon us, having great wrath, because they know that they have but a short time, and you are here scoffing at the very men who are telling you and warning you of these dire times that's about to happen. Only a fool could do that. Only a fool can man that kind of office. You know what I'm saying? You got to be a fool for that. You know. But yeah, the Constitution has been set aside a long time ago. All right, during the Civil War, and it was never been in effect ever since. Okay, the Patriot Act. All right, that shit just emasculates the fuck out of the Bill of Rights. So you ain't got no Bill of Rights. Okay, and so on and so forth. So it's a lot. It's a lot. But hey, the elect are always gonna be all right because that's what the Lord says. All right, if it were possible, they would have deceived the very elect, but it's not possible. It's not possible. Okay, and as a matter of fact, it's because the elect. That's why the days are gonna be shortened. The times of trouble that's gonna be so intensified that Scripture says it's gonna be like a time like never before. Okay, so man, listen. When the Scriptures say like that, yeah, because it's the final showdown. So it has to be epic. This place got to go out in a very epic manner. All right. Anyway, I'm going to leave it off there. Lord willing, you are edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash, the Wadi Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Until next time, Shalom.